morning. It is 10 o'clock. I'm Sue Hodgen, the chair of the Southport Planning Board, and I want to welcome you to this special called February 4th, 2025 meeting of the board. I'm going to ask that everybody silence, please, or turn off your cell phones. Let's start by those that can and will. Please stand while Will Hewitt gives our invocation, and we'll follow with our allegiance. Thank you, Will. Item D on our agenda is public comment. Do I hear a motion that we move into public comment? Thank you, Larry. And a second? Thank you, Will. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have any names for anyone signed up to speak?
No names.
Anybody email with any comments?
No emails.
Thank you, Shay. All right. Do I hear a motion then that we end public comment? Thank you. Thank you, Larry and Bob. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously again. As we advance into the one item on our agenda, I want to emphasize, as I did at last month's meeting, that all of our new members should feel comfortable asking questions for clarification. Between staff, committee members, and the remainder of the board, we'll do our best to answer your questions and concerns. That said, we'll move on to item E, old business, the Yacht Basin overlay. Ms. Meehan.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. This item is continued from your January 16th regular board meeting, and this special meeting was requested so that the proposed language could be considered prior to the spring tourist season. Hold on, let me grab the clicker. I apologize. Thank you. It should be on. Thank you. And as we know, since 2021, there have been several groups and studies that have recommended the proposed overlay that we are considering. The Yacht Basin Committee provided recommendation, the Yacht Basin Mobility Study, and also the Downtown Parking Study and the Draft 2050 Comprehensive Plan. So the proposed overlay that we are considering today includes two R10 zoned lots. They're located at 309 West Moore Street and 102 South Caswell Avenue, and the property owners have given consent to this overlay. The Planning Board met with the review committee, was formed at the January 16th meeting, and met on January 27th with the property owner, staff, and board liaisons. The discussion included surface materials, future uses of the property, driveway aprons, wayfinding, and maintenance of the properties. So the proposed language that is brought forward by the recommendation board or the committee, review committee, includes the following for surfacing: that materials are limited to pervious pavers and number 57 driveway slate gravel, and the perimeters will be delineated with wooden borders. Concrete and asphalt are not permitted in the overlay district. The borders will consist of 8 feet by 8 foot wooden beams for the horizontal lot boundaries and 4 by 4 wooden posts for vertical boundaries, consistent with what is existing currently down at those lots. The driveway entrances will include an apron that are to be sized to contain the surface aggregate and consist of cast-in-place concrete or with an alternative paving material that exhibits equivalent wear, resistance, and load-bearing characteristics. And further, the last standard is going to be maintenance. So off-street parking areas will be properly inspected and maintained on a regular basis using the industry standard best practices. Those are the recommended language by the review committee for full board consideration and recommendation to the Board of Aldermen.
Thank you, Mo. Are there any comments from the review committee members that you'd want to add additionally, or if you want to voice concerns or about the revisions made to the text amendments versus what was brought to us on January 16th?
I have one edit. 4x4 and 8x8 should be inches. That symbol is feet, so just a typo there.
I have one comment to make. Mo, could you put up the map slide again?
There you go.
I had made a recommendation during our committee meeting, a review meeting, about the pedestrian aspect of the whole project. And, you know, what comes to mind is Highway 211 with the DOT improvement. We sort of missed the boat. If we had, at the right time, had submitted through the appropriate avenues request for a greenway connecting up to 11, potentially that could have happened. But after the fact, when the DOT process has already been determined, it's not going to happen. So what I want to say here in this situation, I have a recommendation, and I think you've heard it before, that we look at the pedestrian aspect. And right now, there's an opportunity before any grading is done, before any 8x8s are put in the ground, is simply this, and I'm going to point it out on the map. Along the parcel lines, from this point, which is, this is Caswell, from here to here to here, this basically opens on the Yacht Mason Drive in front of maybe the Mullet. But to me, so the review committee was in favor of suggesting that. I'd still like to suggest it. It's not at great expense. It's the same amount of gravel. It would be right through here, an extra set of 8x8s going in, but it's an opportunity. And I know one of the participants at our review committee during comment that was invited pointed out that Walmart and Costco do not have pedestrian zones. Well, I was there Sunday, and they certainly do. In the front of each of the large businesses, there's a focus that brings pedestrians to a central point and a safe crossing. That's basically what I'm looking at here. And again, it's just a recommendation. It's not going to be written in this unless the aldermen want that. But I think it would be a missed opportunity if it's not done during the planning of the regrading and the timbers, because I know once that's done, it isn't going to happen again because it'll pretty much be written in stone. So I encourage the landowners to consider that, and because it's a great opportunity. And I know you could have an opinion either way, that it would be used or not used, but a great opportunity.
Any comments or questions for Mo? or any of the review committee?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to make sure that the lot numbers are added to our minutes or read into the record, so that way we can make sure that we know exactly which lots we're looking at with the overlay. I'm just having a hard time from here understanding, I know the location, but somebody else might not, so I'd rather at least have those lot numbers added to the minutes.
Or the 102 and 309, is that what the highlight there, Mo?
Yes, those are the street addresses, and then the parcel IDs are the 237 LF 003.
Because it
Yes.
was a little hard to
Yes.
see on our,
Correct. Sure, absolutely.
go ahead.
One small follow-up. I don't think I mentioned a proposed 6-foot walkway with 3 feet from each adjoining property. And that's all I'm talking about, is 3 feet from each adjacent property to allow for that safe passage for the pedestrian.
And now, Fred, you said this was discussed in the review committee meeting. What was the feeling from both owners and the other review committee meeting members, excuse me?
My overview is, in the big picture, we're all interested in moving forward with this and not, derailing the project potential. So it was discussed with interest, and I believe the review board members were in favor of it, but we were not going to push it in anybody's face. It's a recommendation.
Sue, as part of the review committee, it's a good idea, but I don't think it's a good idea for this project at this point. I think getting these neatened up, having them gravelled, having them more organized, and having hopefully better maintenance and appearance is what we need for the city right now. I think the added cost to the owners would be unnecessary. I'm in favor of improvements, but only those that are practical and that will be used. And I think at this juncture, that type of walkway would not be used substantially by the public. And I'd rather see the owners invest their money into the grading, the gravel, the maintenance, the beams, and the upkeep, rather than the cost of a sidewalk.
Understood. Go ahead.
Let me get my feet wet here. So, as I understand it, the maintenance and inspection of the parcel would be the owner's responsibility? Okay. Is the owner also responsible for any liability if anything should happen on the property?
Mo, can you address that? Because I think that was spoken to in another meeting.
Yes, so these are going to be private lots and private parking areas, so that would be on the property owner, yes.
Okay, and the property owners are willing to
They're
take
very-
that liability?
yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
Mo, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you jump back. Is it important to put in the text amendment that the maintenance and if we're going to do city inspections, is that what I'm understanding from this? But the maintenance is on the owners?
If you'd like to add that language, absolutely, we can.
Is
It was really more of the discussions, and correct me if any members of the board, that the owners would be inspecting it, making sure that any maintenance that needed to be done was taken care of within any time frame that it's happened. So it was more of the owners making sure that the property is upkept throughout the season.
committee members are comfortable not specifying that this is the owner's responsibility for inspection and maintenance?
By law and under all the preventive maintenance codes that deal with properties post-building, it is the owner's responsibility. It's laid out. They must maintain them in a non-hazardous condition. So that's imposed by law.
Thank you, Mo. Any other comments? I do have some, I want to be sure as I spoke to at last month's meeting, I want to be sure that we have on record a clear understanding of the evolution of this overlay. The need and vision for an overlay was begun in 2021, and we've talked about that before, when the former mayor called for a work committee. It's my recollection that this committee, of which I was a part, was the only group that's formally worked towards establishment of such a district in our yacht basin. I'm the last man standing of that three-member committee. Plans were discussed, drawn up, and meetings were held from 2021 into 2022 between staff, committee members, and all three owners of what we all term the basin parking lot. At that time, one of the three owners didn't want to participate in the creation of an overlay, and so without everyone's agreement, the plans were put away and the idea languished for the time being. At the January 9th, 2025 Board of Aldermen meeting, the mayor said that he had met with the owners, 2 in person and 1 brought in by phone, and quote, within 30 minutes, 4 people in a parking lot made a decision in that lot that had dragged on for a while, unquote. That's at the 45-minute, 17-second marker of that January recording. No one on the prior committee, on the present review committee, nor staff, nor this planning board, nor the present Board of Aldermen was a part of those discussions and the decision. What was glaringly missing from the dirt lot decision was following the process that's set out in ordinance for creation of such overlays. Discussion by this planning board must ensue, text amendments drafted and voted on as recommendations to be forwarded to the Board of Aldermen. Then that body is required to have a public hearing and a vote on the matter. You're going to see that process in real time in just a couple minutes. All these processes, open and transparent, are laid out in ordinance and should be followed. Else, what's the use for any of it? There are reasons that we have established process and a non-aggrandizing manager-council form of government. We've never alluded to the thought that the overlay was not the best thing to do. Conversely, at last month's meeting, we spoke again to the need for formalization of the overlay zoning when we were presented the drafted text amendment after one alderman reminded the rest of the board on January 9th that they were to instruct us to examine the matter and return a recommendation to them. At our January 16th planning board meeting, it was incumbent on this board, it was our duty, our right, to table the matter for review and discussion. We had 4 new members and no idea of the discussion and decision from the dirt lot. I applaud our members for wanting to fulfill their obligations. That night, I openly and on the record committed to the one owner in attendance that we would expedite our part of the process, and we have done exactly that. After the discussion at our January meeting, it was said to me that it was disappointing that I did not guide the board to adopt the text amendment that was put before it that night. I want to be clear that I'm one member of this board. I don't call members and suggest discussion. I do not, as chair, attempt to influence votes of this board. These are grown individuals with inquiring and responsive minds, and we will do our work by proper process according to the oath we took and the city ordinances that we support. Even at the outset of this assignment to the board, the February 13th meeting of the Board of Aldermen was the earliest this could be voted on and put into place because of process requirements for meeting notices and public hearing. And so, by the way, in answer to a letter to the editor from last week's pilot and even a comment by a sitting alderman on January 9th, yes, the alderman can vote and pass resolutions all day long on various city events and positions, but no, they cannot create and pass UDO text amendments on their own. Unless they want to set fire to ordinance, they too are bound to follow proper process through to conclusion. The review committee established in January wanted to meet with the property owners for discussions so that everyone's expectations and obligations were clear. That was done on January 27th, 9 short days from the committee's formation, and just after the Siberian Express came through. Two of the three property owners attended. One, the same one that put the kibosh on the original overlay concept a couple years ago, again declined to participate. Our committee discussed with the owners in attendance its concerns and suggestions, discussed the use and current lack of 57 stone to complete the work, and agreed that with this overlay's establishment, the owners of those residential lots must abide by the text amendment's parameters. One of the owners of commercial zoned property, by the way, stated that he would most likely follow suit with the other owners' activities, though he's not bound to do so. As we have been for all these years, we remain appreciative of this cooperative spirit. The committee and staff made changes to the drafted text presented to this board last month. The owners, staff, and committee collaborated and revised the text amendment that is in front of this board this morning. I want to stress that these discussions, negotiations, and revisions could have worked years ago. Cost could have been discussed and reduced, and this overlay would have worked then. But one owner didn't want it right then and caused the shelving. I do wonder about this is just me, I do wonder about the hurried timing of this now. There have been a few other off seasons when number 57 was available and all this would have been completed. It's one of those things that just makes one pause for thought and go, I believe we all understand that the work done by staff and the committee is best practice basics for this overlay. It can be revised down the road for aesthetics for the area, including buffering landscaping and or screening, whether it's natural or otherwise, and perhaps consideration of additional pedestrian walkway guidance and historical educational signage might hopefully be included in the not-too-distant future. But for the here and now, this honors our commitment to the owners for expediency and, moreover, what we know is the current best movement forward in adherence to process. Is there any other discussion on this matter? Hearing none, for forwarding to the Board of Aldermen for public hearing and its action, can I get a motion to approve the drafted text amendment to Section 3.3A, Establishment of Overlay Districts, with the correction made this morning by Mr. Lambert, establishing Southport's first overlay district and formalizing allowed parking in the Yacht Basin area?
Do that, Madam Chair. I'll make that motion. Do you need the whole statement of consistency and recommendation to be read out, or is that?
We'll read that in just a minute when we take our vote. Thank you, Larry. And a second? Thank you, Bob. There is a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. The motion passes unanimously. And yes, Larry, we do need that consistency statement read, if you'll do that for us.
Just making sure I do this correctly. Excuse me. Under Amendment ZTA-24-06, Statement of Consistency and Recommendation, the City of Southport Planning Board hereby recommends adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment and zoning map amendment to the Board of Aldermen and finds that it is consistent with the city's 2014 CAMA Core Land Use Plan, originally adopted on November 13, 2014, and subsequently amended by the Southport Board of Aldermen. More specifically, the proposed amendment is consistent with Policy 7.8. Southport recognizes that tourism is important and will support activities that promote tourism.
Thank you, Larry. Even though we only had one item on this agenda, I'd ask for anything additional that anyone wants to bring before the board this morning. I would ask that members and the public begin to watch the process and progress of House Bill 24, introduced on January 29th. This bill will hopefully repeal part of the damage done during last year's legislative session regarding municipalities' planning and zoning efforts. Mo sent out an email with the link to the bill. If our members are not familiar with the General Assembly website and bill movement, let me hear from you. I'll be glad to help you with that. Is there anything else? Hearing no other items then, and with no other business before us, can I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. All right, there is a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? We pass unanimously on that as well. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm adjourning the meeting at 10:26. Have a good day.